Welcome. The name of the show is Building Bridges, and it's a show that kind of designed to bring the police together with the community.
Today we do have a very special guest. He's the commanding officer of the Ceremonial unit in the New York City Police Department, and that's Lieutenant Tony Giorgio. And thank you so much for accepting the invitation.
Well, thank you so much, Joe. Thank you, Ed, for having me. It's a pleasure being here.
Well,
You know, when we first come on the job, we didn't have a police department band, and we didn't have a ceremonial unit the way we have in the department today.
yeah.
And what I'd like for Tony to do is mention how he changed the ceremonial unit and made it to such an elite unit in the police department. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to you and give the history of the ceremonial unit and how it came about today to be such an elite unit.
Well, thank you for those kind words. And of course, I didn't do anything alone. I have unbelievable staff and the men and women so dedicated to the mission and the core values of the ceremonial unit. It was Lieutenant Pete King in 1973 who brought the idea of a ceremonial unit. His son is also Pete King, who is the United States Congressman for the 2nd Congressional District out in Long Island.
A very, very popular guy, too.
Very good representative
Very good
of his
representative,
constituents.
exactly.
Yeah, maybe 15, 16 different terms as their congressperson, and does a wonderful job. But so Lieutenant Pete King first came up with the concept to develop a ceremonial unit. And then from there, I got there in 1989, and it was a very small unit, only did promotion ceremonies and graduations. And back in those days, the graduations for recruits were once or twice a year. And the ceremonies were maybe 1 a month, 2 a month. It wasn't a big cause having a unit to do a lot of events because the department just simply didn't do them. And over the course of the years, the department decided to pick up the pace of ceremonies. We want to honor the men and women in the New York City Police Department. We want to boost the morale of the men and women in the New York City Police Department. They do an unbelievable job each and every day, and we want to celebrate them, and we want to tell their stories. And some of the ways that we could tell those stories is by having precinct medal days, family days, where we bring in the families so that families see where mom or dad works in the New York City Police Department. And so then we started developing different ceremonies that we never had before. And so over the year, it's grown to where we're over 300 ceremonies a year. We are over 60 parades. We want to go to every community in New York City and participate in community parades and show our officers off, so to speak, that we're proud to be officers. We're proud to serve the community that we're there for. And so it's developed over these years.
And Pete was the ceremonial officer, and he didn't have a true ceremonial unit the way we have it today. And Pete just had mostly his staff, whenever he needed to do ceremonies, were instructors from the gym. You know, those big burly guys, especially when we had to assist in the marching at the St. Patrick's Day Parade. He had the gym instructors getting everybody into shape.
Let me interrupt you. Speaking of St. Patrick's Day Parade, I was quite impressed with the police department band marching on our St. Patrick's Day Parade.
Other favorite Staten Island parades is the July 4th Travis parade.
Oh, that's
a wonderful parade.
Ladies and gentlemen, New York City Police Department Ceremonial Band. Thank you, gentlemen and ladies. New York City Police Department Ceremonial Band. Director Lieutenant Tony Giorgio. We have the Police Department, City of New York.
Beautiful community. They wrap their houses in the American flag. They have a decorating contest there, and then everyone is there with American flags out on their porches. It's just a wonderful event.
Pete, like I said, didn't have a true ceremonial unit like you have today. He didn't have a staff, and whenever he needed to do something, he'd grab a few instructors from the gym, and basically all Pete did was put together funerals, line of duty funerals.
Right.
I think he had a little to do with the promotions, and then, of course, with the graduation of the recruits at the academy. And he had maybe one sergeant or one police officer assigned to him steady. I think it was Tom Fitzsimmons. He was a gym instructor. And in as much as they really wanted to do more, the city didn't give them the resources, meaning the money, to do what they wanted to do with the ceremonial unit. And today, thank God, the police commissioner, the mayor, they're allocating the resources to the NYPD to give us a ceremonial unit that projects such a positive image of police officers that when that band marches down the street and the kids see that, well, that's an incentive to maybe I want to become a cop. And Lieutenant Giorgio really brought that unit up to what it is today. It's, like I said, it's an elite unit in the department, and he does a lot more than what we just spoke about now. And I want you to elaborate on more that you do, especially the part that helps the community relations and brings up the image of police officers in New York City.
You're absolutely right, Joe. And it's just a wonderful, great thing you're doing.
It changes the image when you see a police officer with a trumpet in their hand as opposed to something else. And it also bridges that gap when they play different music of different, genre, different era. People can relate to the music, relate that they're musicians and police officers. So it does change the dynamic and bridges, the feeling between the community and the police. And music, of course, is very soothing. It's everyone appreciates music, so it's a great bridge into the communities.
Yeah, music is a common language of the world.
It is the universal language.
That's right.
Tell us the different. You have a jazz band, right?
So we have the marching band, which was the larger group, and out of that, we then broke it down to a jazz ensemble, which is a 25-piece jazz ensemble, plays big band all the way up to pop. Then we have a jazz combo. That's more intimate settings where maybe the event space is small or maybe there's a small audience there. We don't want to overpower it with music. And they play the same type of music. We have a steel drum band, and we created that years ago so that we can have a steel group in the West Indy Day Parade. And we bring out a float. We put the steel drum players on the float, and it's really a wonderful beginning of the parade because we're one or two floats at the beginning. And then we also have a drum line, and the drum line is used in different places. We also have a program that goes into the elementary school called the Musical Outreach Program, and we bring the drum line into that, and sort of the kids see the drum line, they're excited about it. Now they ask questions about being a percussionist. How do you get into a drum line? So we use that in different areas that we want to bridge, perhaps the police officers and the audience that we're performing for. 98% of any community are all people who are just, law-abiding citizens want to do just work and have a safe environment for their children. It's a very small percentage of the population that we actually have to look after. But at the Caribbean Day Parade, the police department is so diverse now. much more than it was 30 years ago or 40 years ago, that the players in the band are from the Caribbean who are police officers.
Right.
So it is really showing the diversity, which when people ask me around the world, when the band goes on different tours, they say, what's the secret of the New York City Police Department's success? Besides these wonderful programs, and we have a new program now that Commissioner O'Neill has put out a couple years ago. It's the Neighborhood Coordinating Officer Program, to really break the barrier down between the police and the communities, having that neighborhood officer out there. The people know him or her. They know the neighborhood. They know the people in the neighborhood. Besides that program, we have a lot of questions of what makes the New York City Police Department special. And the number one thing that makes the New York City Police Department special, it's its diversity. The diversity is the strength of the NYPD because it's reflecting the population of the city. The city is the most diverse city in the world. So why not have the police department, the most diverse police department in the world? And that's really the secret of the NYPD, is that we can patrol, police, we can help reach out to community people because we have the diversity to do it. Our officers come from the city. They don't come from anywhere else. They live and work in New York City.
I'll tell you, in conversations I've had with Ed, I was always very, very proud of being in the NYPD. And when I was an instructor at the academy, I used to put drill teams together, and they would perform at graduations. And I said, gee, I wish I had some musical talent. I'd love to put a police department band together. And Tony did it. It's wonderful. Let me tell you, it does so much for the department's image.
Well,
and
I would love to know the history. And I'm going to ask Tony to tell us the history, because when I was with the police department, we didn't have a band.
Right.
Okay. And we didn't have anything as awesome. And I hate to say it, but I was so much in awe of what I saw that I said, this is phenomenal. Maybe you could tell us a little bit of history.
The New York City Police Department had a band from 1901 to 1955. And that band was mainly made out of veterans coming home from our armed forces who each have a band. The Army had a band, Navy had a band, and so forth. And then they would join the police department. And of course, they had these musical capabilities, and the department used them. In fact, not only did the New York City Police Department have a brass band, so did the sanitation department have a brass band, again, from veterans. So in 1955, it was a decision that, hey, these officers assigned to the band, we're going to need them to augment our patrol strength. So we're going to have to stop the band. And so from 1956 on, it took a year to stop the band and reassign the officers. From 1956 on to 1960, there was nothing. There was no musical unit attached to the NYPD. In 1960, the Emerald Society, our fraternal organization made up of Irish officers, Irish heritage officers, they formed the first pipe band. And that pipe band has been emulated in every police department across the nation, of officers playing pipes and drums. So from 1960 to 1991, the Emerald Society was the band that you would see at all the official functions of the New York City Police Department. In 1991, the department came to me and said, could you start a band? Is it something that we can do? And we have to change the format. They can't be assigned permanently. What they could do is practice on their own time, practice themselves. When we need them, we'll pull them in for the day for the event. And so since then, we started small. 1991, we had 12 musicians that answered. We have an internal bulletin that went out. And we had 12 musicians, a lot of guitar players, a lot of drummers. But we started the basis of what you see today, and it took a very long time. It took wonderful work. People like Ann Andrzejkowski and Tommy Tressler and Tony Stewart, who's still with the band today, Detective Amy Pape, who is really spearheading the band with all the performances and administrative functions. It was all these wonderful people who came in, totally professional musician and dedicated to the mission of the New York City Police Department, that really elevated the musicianship and also the camaraderie that the band has.
And they practice on their own time?
They practice on their own time individually, And then we get together. It's very difficult to get the whole band together because there's so many different charts out there, so many different details, who's off on weekends, who's not. So we try to get together maybe just the trumpets or maybe just the drums, maybe just the woodwinds. And then we throw it together, 1 or 2 rehearsals before a large event like a recruit graduation at Madison Square Garden, play some new music, and then perform it.
So in effect, they go and work in a command, and they wait till they get called, and then they come in for the band.
That's right. They work in there. They work at highway. They work in precincts. They work in a detective bureau. They work throughout the organizational chart of the New York City Police Department. And then when we need them for a promotional event, which you had just attended, a recruit graduation, then we bring them in for the day and have them perform.
Was so well polished.
I know.
So well polished in their demeanor, in their musical ability, that you would think that they were together 4 or 5 days a week practicing.
Look who their leader is.
Well,
He
again,
does a
there's a lot of people behind me. I know I'm in the studio here by myself. There are a lot of great people. We have great section heads. We got Chris, Zach, we got John. It's just wonderful. Both of you've been members of the New York City Police Department. You know the talent pool that's there. It's just an incredible camaraderie that we have in that department.
But your personality and character has a lot to do with it. Let me tell you.
Well, I'm a character. Let's go. Let's leave it at that.
I think, did you mention that the band has traveled around the world?
The band has this great opportunity with the Sister City program and then with the World Police Band Festival to travel to Japan, Hong Kong, Singapore, Indonesia, Vietnam twice, 2 different, the North and the South, to perform and act as a bridge and an introduction, because a lot of migration has come from that area into specifically New York City. And we explained to them, when you're here, the New York City Police Department is not attached to the military as it is in some of those countries. It is a civilian patrol,
Right.
not a military patrol. And that if there's a crime that was brought against you, you should have no problems finding a New York City police officer, explaining the problem that you have, because we want to make sure that everyone, people who live here, people who are visiting here, are comfortable coming up to a police officer and requesting assistance.
Do you do any recruiting for people to come into the band, or do people just come forward?
We have a fraternal day in the police academy, and that is, as the recruits are getting ready to graduate, we have different fraternal organizations come in, line organizations come in. The band has a table there, and we just show that we're there. If you express an interest, you just sign up, put your name on a form with your email and your telephone number, and then we call you and say, listen, you signed up for it. Would you like to audition? We do have an audition process. We have to make sure that we have the right amount of instruments. We can't have 100 trumpet players and 1 drummer. We have to have a full balanced band. Obviously, woodwinds are important, so we want to make sure we have enough of woodwinds in the band. And we bring them in for audition, and then after the audition, then we start rotating them in the band as their squads work. So we try to use the people who are actually working, and then we put together the band depending on what type of music we need, the venue, the hall, how large the band should be, and also who's working on that day.
If someone comes forward and says to you, I want to come in the band, but I don't know how to play an instrument, will they be given an opportunity to learn an instrument?
You always can learn, no matter what age you're at. So we say, listen, if you really want to, we recommend taking private music lessons, find the instrument you like. You can always audition to us. It doesn't matter if you're a 1-year veteran of the New York City Police Department or a 20-year. If you want to learn an instrument, and I tell everyone, you should always look to music. And even if you're getting the age of retirement, go learn an instrument. Something to challenge yourself. Show that police officers are a bridge between two
That's-
different ethnicities, between two different languages, and that if you need assistance, that there should be no problem that you would know that, wow, I saw this police band in my country. So maybe this office that I'm going to is part of that band. Perhaps not, but
Right.
maybe it is. So let me go and ask for assistance. And that's really what we're trying to do with the music. We're trying to bridge the police department to every community, to those people that live here in the city, but also those people that are newly coming into the country, or those people who are just visiting, tourists.
Do you ever march together with the Emerald Society Pipe Band?
We do certain performances together. When we have Battery Park has a police memorial there. And when we unveil the names, we do use pipes and brass. We've done a couple of things with members of the Pipers. We brought some with us on tours because the music that we were playing that year included pipes. It's a beautiful sound to have bagpipes and brass. Really amazing sound. If you never heard it before, you can look it up on YouTube or anywhere on the internet. Just to listen to brass and pipes play together is really an amazing sound.
Did you ever put a CD together?
We haven't put a CD together.
Well, why do you do that? I mean,
We're
that
too
would be-
busy performing to sit and put a CD together.
Well, that would be great if ever you put a CD out, because I would enjoy listening to the bands. I love them, and I think I told you the first time I saw the band coming up Forest Avenue for the St. Patrick's Day parade. I was so proud. I had just retired, and I had tears in my eyes. You make me proud. I want to thank you, and I'm sure I'm speaking for Ed too.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Joe.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Ed.
Yeah. The St. Patrick's Day parade and I keep referring back to the promotion ceremony. The back hairs came up on my, when I saw that band march in, start playing, and then the diversity of the music that you played. Went from Broadway to salsa.
Ceremonies in New York City Police Department's most celebrated ceremony we do. A lot of those officers spend a lot of time, as both of you know, retired sergeants, studying to get and take a test and get promoted, and it's a great honor. We have other officers that are getting promoted to detective who've done years of great work out in the field, behind the scenes, and getting promoted to detective or making grade. And so we want to highlight their accomplishments, because their accomplishments are our department's accomplishments. So we try to make it as festive, as celebratory as possible, and the band adds to that, atmosphere by performing as the people come in, and also as they leave. Sometimes, if it's a short ceremony, we'll have the band on the exit too.
I was impressed. As soon as we walked in, I saw that banner all across the front of the stage that said, "Congratulations on your promotion," and it had, I think, some.
It had the different shields.
Different shields?
Yes.
Very impressed. Very impressed.
We live in a visual world. Everyone's taking photos. Everyone's, doing small videos and all that. And so the optic we want to show is that we are congratulating all these different ranks and all these civilian different titles, and we want to congratulate them all. And the best way is having a banner. People take pictures before and after the ceremony
Yeah.
with their loved ones and the promotee in front of that banner. So it's a great optic to have.
It is. It is, absolutely. Oh, you know what I wanted to mention? We never mentioned it. This program, Building Bridges, is under the auspices of the New York City Police Alliance, which is
Yeah, we said we'd mention it.
501c3 tax-exempt organization. The New York City Police Alliance was started back in 1994. I don't know if you remember. Its founder really is Pete Mancuso.
Oh,
Pete,
sure.
Yeah.
Pete was the director of training in the police academy.
Yeah, and the founding fathers are all instructors from the police academy, and now they're all retired. Few of them have gone, but he started this organization, and then I became the president and CEO maybe about 15 years ago, and unfortunately, I don't have many members that are in the group because everybody's retired and who moved to the West Coast, who moved to Europe, and who's gone to the command up in the sky, But it's a great organization, and I've gotten some money from the borough president and some people who have donated money. So I'm still going to continue with the New York City Police Alliance.
We're certainly interested in members of the community who would like to help out with this program.
We also have an email address at buildingbridges911@gmail.com, so they could also send me an email as well. I'd like to talk about the Honor Guard. I remember when I first got to the academy, we did not have an Honor Guard the way we have one today in the department. Even the uniforms, it's unbelievable the way they dress. They look so sharp when you look at them. Just the uniforms alone, their appearance would make a young kid say, wow, I want to wear that uniform and go into the police department. How did you convince the department to bring that uniform?
So, I'm going to take a step back and explain the Honor Guard, how we developed that, and then I'll put the overlay of the uniform. So when I first got there in 1989, the pallbearers were actually just two teams of pallbearers, and we used them as Honor Guard. They wore the summer blouse with a white shirt, which was the dress uniform of a New York City police officer. As the years came on, there was more need for Honor Guard. There were more needs for color guards. We were starting to grow the ceremonies, and we needed to expand the role of the Honor Guard. So we went to every precinct and said, we need one person that when we have an event that we can train and designate your representative that we could take from you for that day and then bring them to that event. So now that we had really a large following of Honor Guard people inside the unit, we developed that uniform. So in 1999, we said we wanted to have a uniform for the millennium. It would be an Honor Guard uniform. And other departments around the nation just were starting to have an Honor Guard uniform. So we developed it, went through a couple of different modifications, but it has the choker collar, which is very significant because the old choker that the officers wore in the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, all the way up to 1973 had a choker collar. So we wanted to bring that into it. We have the Spanish gold piping on the side. We have the Sam Brown belt, which again, very historically significant for police officers, that look. And we debuted it in 2000. And we really did it for the millennium to have an Honor Guard uniform. And it was such a positive image, internally and externally, that we made it the official uniform for the ceremonial unit.
Unbelievable. Okay. I'm telling you. And there are other things that the unit does. I mean, when people come into the department, you're at the gym or wherever they wherever they process them, and you get up there and you talk to the new recruits.
We talk to new recruits. We explain what the Honor Guard is. We particularly look for people who were in military who also were in the Honor Guard.
Right.
There. Out of the Honor Guard, we have several color guards, and those are the officers that you see with the rifles and the flags. Right. You might see them at Yankee Stadium or Citi Field performing the national anthem with our singers. So we want to have, again, a representation of the department. We have male and female. We have all ethnicities in the Honor Guard. So we constantly are looking for personnel because, as you know, both of you, once you get promoted or once you go to a special detail or a different assignment, we might not able to be able to pull you into the unit. So we want to make sure that we always have significant amount of officers that we can assign to an honor guard event, that we can make sure that we have them assigned.
When I was on the job, the most I saw ceremonial units was at the funerals, which I give credit to that unit back then, even though they didn't have as much pizzazz as you do now. When you looked at the long line of police officers outside of a funeral home or outside of a church, okay, and it looked like there were 3,000 cops that had been practicing to do that. And in reality, it was the ceremonial unit that made it happen.
Well, again, it's probably our saddest day when we lose an officer, and we just recently lost Detective Brian Simonson from the 102 precinct.
Right.
But everyone's professional. Everyone knows they have a job to do. And, you know, we performed that funeral out in Hampton Bays, and really it was between 20 and 25,000 officers that line up. And I should say, over the years, our brothers and sisters in FDNY come out and support us. They're the folks behind the scenes that are getting the hot coffee out, grilling hot dogs and hamburgers for us. A tremendous outpouring of love from FDNY at these funerals. And we try to do the same support, unfortunately, when they lose a member, because we're all on the same team. We're all first responders. We're all trying to make the city safe. We're trying to serve the people. And whether they wear an FDNY patch or an NYPD patch or any other patch, we're there for each other. And they were there in such great numbers helping us behind the scenes. But then we had the officers that were visiting from other police agencies.
That always amazed me. I mean,
they get on a plane, they get on a train, they drive their cars, they drive their RMPs. They ask where to park, where to stand, and they'll stand in line. And then they leave. And sometimes we don't even know their names. We try to get their departments and counties and states that they come from. But again, the uniform may be a slightly different color, the patch may be a slightly different design, but it's the same job. It's to protect and serve those communities. And they feel, when we lose an officer, they feel like they lost an officer. And I should expand on that. We do send 2 honor guard to almost every line of duty in the continental United States that we can get our officers to, just to reciprocate that they came and showed their support and love to the NYPD. We want to do the same thing to their communities.
Right. When I was with the union, we used to go ourselves and take part in, a ceremony in other cities. And I was always impressed by the welcome that we got.
No, it definitely helps. It helps the family. It helps the members of the department to see that support that's given to them. It shows that you're not alone. It shows that we're all one. We're all trying to, complete the same mission. So it really is helpful.
We didn't always reciprocate. We didn't always travel across the country to funerals. And that, when did that change? What commissioner?
Well, it was, it's not under one commissioner. It's just that I think the world has gotten a lot smaller. And with the internet and with social media, when an officer dies in one part of the country, it is out on social media immediately. And so everyone's getting it. A lot of times in the past, you would read about it in a newspaper, maybe, if it got to print, 2 or 3 days after the funeral. So now, because of the internet and social media, we're finding out that it was a fallen officer in Seattle. Great. Let's give a call. I mean great in the sense that the officer's passed, but we have the information. Let's get 2 officers, transportation, lodging, over to Seattle to represent the department.
Exactly, yeah.
So I think what changed, Joe, is that 20 years ago, we didn't have that capability of knowing when a department tragically lost a loved one. Now, because of the internet, social media platforms, they put that information right out. We're almost getting notification
within the
Yeah.
instantaneously. Yeah. So we can get our officers traveling to represent us.
I'm so proud of them, and I'm glad that they're around, because they help a lot with the image of the members of the department. No doubt about it.
Well, I mean, I think if you look back, there's an ebb and flow between communities and policing, and I think especially with Commissioner O'Neill's new program, we're trying to have so much trust in the community that when those ebb and flows happen, that the community knows what the police department is there for. Let's face it, the police officers are tasked with a monumental decision sometimes to take a life or not take a life, to stop a threat, or to use some other uses of force. And it's a nanosecond they make this decision, and we can all debate it afterwards. And sometimes it was correct, sometimes it may not be correct. But I've yet to meet a police officer in a locker room or in a roll call that said, "Oh, today I'm going to use deadly physical force." It just doesn't happen.
No.
And that's the thing. That's the message you got to try to bring out to the community, is that we are there to serve you. We are there to protect you. We're there to assist you. And then we try to build this trust so that they're comfortable coming to us and they're comfortable seeing us. And that when we're walking down the footpost, they're giving us a high five and saying, "Hi, Officer Joe. Hi, Officer Susan. How are you?" And it's a phenomenal program that Commissioner O'Neill is not only made it a program, but it is the philosophy of policing now in the New York City police departments. And I believe other police departments look at the NYPD as they looked in the early 90s at CompStat, and then grabbed the concept of CompStat and then applied it to their departments. I think they look at the NYPD, and then they're looking at this new program. Sorry, how can we use the neighborhood policing concept in our neighborhood, in our town? So it's a wonderful program, and really we need the community. It is really a joint venture. You cannot police in a vacuum. You need collaborative. You need participation, and we are there to work for the community, bottom line.
Absolutely. And Commissioner Tucker had mentioned how much shootings have gone down, that, police officer shootings. It went down to, was it 35 from maybe 800 or 900 when they first started? It's remarkable.
Over the years, you could look at the shooting report, and those figures are always given out by the police department. You'll see New York City is the most restrained police department with the use of the firearm as per capita any other department. And it goes to, and I know Joe was a CAMI instructor as I was, it goes to the training. It goes to the in-service training. So just because you graduate the police academy doesn't mean that your training stopped. In fact, it's only begun. You're trained for the next 20, 25 years, or however long your career is in the police department, and new weapons, new tactics are discussed, and we bring you in for in-service training. So we're trying to say use all these other measures before you have to use deadly physical force if you have that opportunity to do so. So it's up to us to educate the public too of, hey, listen, if you're confronted with police officers, this is what you should do to de-escalate the situation. This is what the officer is going to do to de-escalate the situation. Don't put your hands in the pocket. Don't start reaching out for your glove box in your car. Those things should be brought out. It's a shared responsibility.
Right.
And you've done it. You do a car stop because you have no idea what the driver or the passengers just committed. You have no idea who's sitting in the back seat. Is there someone in the back seat? It's very difficult sometimes to see in cars at night because maybe there's tints on the window.
Right.
So you have to de-escalate it, the public, by saying, okay, I'm going to comply with the officer's commands, leave my hands on the steering wheel, ask him for a license registration, let me produce it. If I need to reach into the glove box for the insurance card, let me tell him or tell her I'm going into the glove box.
Yeah.
Try to de-escalate it because, again, I've said this before, I've yet to meet the officer in my 36-year career in law enforcement that says, today I want to use deadly physical force. It just doesn't happen in any department. So I think it's a shared responsibility on both sides.
Getting back to the tint on the windows, I believe Mayor de Blasio had legislation passed that...
There is the Timoshenko law, which was named after Detective Russell Timoshenko,
right,
who was tragically killed in line of duty, pulling over a car, couldn't see inside the car. He was shot and subsequently died of those gunshot wounds. And so it's a state law that the tints have to be a certain percentage.
Right.
And it's the Timoshenko law. And it's a law that we needed. We were getting cars that you couldn't even see in the daylight inside the car. And there was really no need for it.
Well, I heard a story the other day. Somebody went to get their car inspected, and the tint was too dark, and they failed inspection.
Right. It's a visual inspection that happens every year that you have your inspection due on your car, and the person that is doing the inspection is a visual inspection of the tints and see if it's too dark, and you will not pass.
Yeah, I think the department might want to consider going back to a program that they had in the 70s where people in the community rode around in a radio car with the police. They signed a waiver, and they rode around, and they actually saw what police officers were up against.
Well, they have a wonderful program called Citizens Police Academy. And what the Citizens Police Academy is that the community members go to the local precinct and say, I'd like to be part of the Citizen Police Academy. And they actually take citizens from different precincts, bring them to the academy, and they go through a very shortened program.
Yeah.
But they get to see the training, some of the training that the officers get. They get to see the range, some of the training they get there. And it sort of gives them their awareness that there's a lot more in that decision processing than what you see there. Those of you watching the program, if you want to be part of the Citizens Police Academy, go to your local precinct, ask your community affairs officer, ask someone there at the command, how can I be part of this program? It's a wonderful program.
It is.
And again, that's part of our side of getting the message out of how our officers are trained.
See, the public doesn't understand the restrictions that have been placed on police officers by Supreme Court decisions. If they understood what some of these decisions do, in effect, holding police officers back, then they might understand what all police officers go through on the street, why there are certain things that they can't do. We used to have a picture in the police academy, very large picture, in the museum. It was called Restrictions. And it was a picture of St. Michael the Archangel, the patron saint of police officers, on a horse. And there was rope holding down the horse, rope holding down St. Michael, and then there was a broken sword on the ground. And St. Michael was looking up in the sky at himself, free to reign. And the reason the picture was named Restrictions, and I got one at home, is to kind of get the point across the restrictions placed on police officers in trying to do their job. And the broken sword had something to do with justice being broken or something like that. I don't recall the exact wording of it.
And it's often said by a lot of people, no one goes in the police profession to make money. It is not why you go there.
You're absolutely right.
You go there for one reason, and you could frame it a lot of different ways. It's you care. You care and you want to make a difference. And again, there's different ways of saying that, but it's that you care about people and you want to make a difference in your community. That's why the three of us, and that's why those that are out there serving, those that out there served before us, went into the profession. No one goes into policing to make money. And I have to comment on something earlier you just said, but Commissioner O'Neill just had an executive staff conference, and once a year we get all the captains and above and directors, civilian members of the department, directors, assistant commissioners, deputy commissioners. And we get them in the large room at the new police academy in Whitestone. And they have different panels, they have discussions, they have breakout sessions, they have different workshops. And one of the most encouraging things that was brought out is that with this new concept that Commissioner O'Neill has, they had a panel of principals, assistant principals, church pastors, and one of the panelists from a high school brought an amazing statistic to us. He said in his high school, when they asked the students in student government, what profession would you be interested in going to? Overwhelmingly, they said law enforcement. Overwhelmingly. I've never heard that before. In fact, he broke it down that the women specifically wanted to be detectives, and the police and the men wanted to be police officers. So it looks like that we're reaching the community. It looks like the community is understanding what policing's about. It is that shared responsibility. And the fact that in high school, people who do not have relatives that were police officers, are thinking about the law enforcement profession. I think we're getting the word out that we're bridging, as your show is called, into different communities, and we're making a difference.
This new community policing concept has really helped. I'm a community partner in the 121, and I have to keep in contact with the 2 police officers in the sector where I live. And, sometimes I may hear of something that's going on in the neighborhood, so I'll give them a call. I have their cell phone number, and they already know about it. They're on top of everything. I can't believe it.
Well, again, and I know you both were sergeants, the technology that the officer today has in their hand is amazing. They have a smartphone. Every New York City police officer has a smartphone. Every New York City police officer has an email. They can instantaneously on their phone bring up different stats, different history of locations, background checks. They can get emails back and forth. It's really an unbelievable transition than when we first came on. I came on in 1983. We just had a radio and a nightstick.
Between that and your firearm and everything else you had to carry. And today I look at what they carry. I'm like in awe. I said, what the heck is that? A big pouch on the side?
In case of a chemical, catastrophic incident,
Really?
you have some things. We learned that after 9/11. It's just the information that the officers have right now, with the smartphone in their hand, they have computers in their car. I mean, it's just a totally different training than we experienced going through the academy.
I know. Sometimes I look inside a radio car and I'm like, oh my God, how do they know what, there's so much that they have to learn just sitting in a radio car. It's not just sitting there looking out the window. There's screens and computers. It's unbelievable. I'm telling you, the technology today.
I can't thank you enough for coming down.
Thank you so much, Ed. Thank you. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Same here.
And Joe, as always, I thank you. The police officer is your friend, and he's looking there to help. He's there to serve the public and help the public. Okay, and we thank you very much for watching out for them.
I thought it would be a very good idea to have this program. It's a good vehicle to bring the police and the community closer together. Commissioner Tucker and I go back, I'm dating myself, into the 70s. We were both on the faculty at the police academy. We were instructors teaching recruits, and that's how I got to know him. And today, he is now the first deputy police commissioner, and I asked him to come here to explain to the people in the community, as well as police officers who may be watching this program, what his role is as first deputy police commissioner. And I've had prior conversations with him, and I'm amazed as to all the things that he's involved in. So much different than when I first come on the job. The first deputy commissioner didn't do all this, and he's doing a lot.
Roughly 30 agencies get together on a regular basis to share information such as they can, and respectful of the confidentialities that the various entities that are participating, but all focused on how do we use this data that we collect to understand the problem of opioid.
Would you say that the interagency communication over the past 4.5, 5 years has improved greatly?
It's absolutely true. I mean, it is one of the things, and it has improved unbelievably so. And if you were to sit in on a CompStat, we always have guests that come in, and these are guests from other agencies, but often our partners, DA's office or others coming in from the state or whoever, foreign nationals, people who we work with and coordinate with around the globe. So lots of that communication, but our communication with between and among city agencies is allowed us to be much more effective, and it also kind of echoes and I think underscores the importance of the fact that police are the first responders, but we can't do it by ourselves, and so the notion that policing is a shared responsibility really means that we can't do it without the community. It hasn't been done that way. It hasn't been part of the intentional, the purposeful approach to doing what we do. Those walls, those silos, to the extent that they existed, are pretty much dissipated with respect to how we engage community. But they've also dissipated, certainly with respect to how we communicate with our other entities, our partners, our stakeholder, law enforcement partners, as well as our social services partners, and across the board. So when you have that kind of deliberate communication with a particular focus in mind of understanding what the problem is, how to solve the problem, and what it's going to take to do that, whether it's the use of Narcan to help reverse overdoses, but also to then have a team respond to that location to speak to that person once they are revived and they're to try and get them into some services. Those kinds of things. That's just one example of the kinds of things that we try to do. Ceasefire, which Commissioner Herman has been very much in the forefront of, in addition to the giving voice to our victim advocates to help them, get the services they need, but also help them be advocates on their own behalf, to be part of how we make cases, prosecute bad guys, and so forth. So there's a lot of sort of these different lanes that are simultaneously taken.
We have to take away the adversarial position between community and police on both sides of the fence.
Yeah. I mean, and that's all about understanding. I mean,
exactly.
That's really, we don't make it if we don't work together.
Police officers have more information at their disposal than when you and I were out on patrol. And I think I attribute that to community policing. A lot of these officers, the NCOs especially, they're really involved with finding as much information as possible on any assignment they go on. Plus, they're involved in a CompStat out here on Staten Island, the NCOs. I don't know if they do that throughout the city, but they have a CompStat that they have to go through, and it's amazing. I was at a Build-a-Block meeting, the first Build-a-Block meeting that Sector Boy held in the 121. I was amazed that virtually every question that was asked by the participants, the people sitting in the audience, virtually every question was answered. They had the answers, and it wasn't just the NCOs, it was also the other officers on patrol that were present there, and I was like sitting there in awe. I said, I can't believe this.
Yeah.
Well, they had answers to everything. And I think I told you earlier, the NCOs that I'm assigned to, I'm a community partner in the 121. I'm like a fly on the wall in the neighborhood. If I hear anything, I got to call them and let them know. They already know. They already know. I said, I'm wasting my calls here. I said, why do I bother calling you guys, It's unbelievable.
Because they're doing their job.
They're doing their job. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it's all about. I mean, you don't, if you're plugged in and you're engaged in the neighborhood, right? I mean, that's really, this is grassroots kind of stuff, right? I mean, that's the whole idea. When Commissioner, the notion of neighborhood policing was an idea that that Commissioner O'Neill had.
Right.
And when I don't remember the day it was, but I remember the conversation that we had talking about his idea and what he was wanting to do with the whole resectoring idea and dedicating officers to sectors. For me, for a guy who's been involved in community-oriented policing and was part of the cops office when I worked at Justice, I mean, we were providing all the funding, and we worked basically for the Attorney General doing this work and providing the funding. Lots of money at that time, $8.8 billion that was budgeted through Congress. All of those make a difference. I mean, we've retrofitted the cars with door panels so that our officers have some additional safety.
Right.
We have the glass that's there, the bullet-resistant glass. So, we looked at those things carefully after we had some of the tragic shootings and basically after Lou and Ramos were murdered.
Right.
We started to look at those things, and we didn't just talk about it. I mean, we talked about it. We thought, what do we have out there that we might want to adopt? Bob went out and looked, and he came back with prototypes, and we implemented it. Those kinds of things are, people don't know about, but they enhance the ability of our officers to do their jobs in a safer way, which is a benefit to the community, right? In many ways, and just in that context. So I could talk to you for another 3 hours about all the things that have happened in the last 4.5 years that have added value incrementally to the effectiveness of and the results shown through reduced crime, lowest it's ever been since we've been keeping statistics. But not just that, but in many ways, also in the fact that the community engagement is getting traction in ways that it's never gotten before, and a lot of that has to do with, again, circling back to training. Training has been critical in every respect to everything that we've accomplished. We are training. Pretty much. We added three additional in-service training days, so that's going to happen. So every officer gets 5 days of training. But the reality is that we've trained officers of late in so many different subject areas in the last few years that we're really up about 12 days a year. 12 training days is what we've invested in.
But that's important.
It's very important, and it is critically important to the success of and sustaining our neighborhood policing platform.